Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. The next hour is all about the entrepreneur, why they start businesses, how they make their businesses grow, how they overcome failures and achieve success. Your hosts are Bob Gibbons, founder of Riata Commercial Realty, a commercial real estate advisory and tenant advocacy firm, and Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. Bob and Stephen will ask probing questions to find impactful solutions that will help take your business to the next level. And now, here's Bob Gibbons and Stephen Nooner.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And this is Bob Gibbons, and we are here again with another great guest. This week it's David Lancashire, and David is the CEO of Project 202. And I'm excited about this, Stephen, because, you know, we all use software, right? But we just use whatever somebody else has created. But this company is great because they build software from the user's perspective. And they're an experience-driven software development company based in Dallas, but with offices in Austin and Seattle. And they've refined this methodology where they help where people reveal their true needs and provide insight into guiding the firm's design and development of software that delivers that best possible user experience. So that's pretty exciting. They've been on the Inc. 5000 for 7 consecutive years. Seven, big time. And he's also been the founder of another company. We'll talk about that. David, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, great to be here, guys.
Welcome.
Thanks.
I was waiting for Bob to screw up. I guess you've been practicing.
Give it time.
We like to start off every show with the wisdom of others.
Before you do that,
yeah.
I did screw up because you know what I didn't do?
What's that? Oh, you forgot his website.
I didn't give him the website.
Yeah.
So it's Project 202, no C, put a K instead of a C. So it's PROJEKT 202.com. You know, you can't have a tech company without having something strange about the way that
there's a whole story there. There's a German,
German
spelling.
I wanted to know. Yeah,
okay.
I was totally curious.
I was wondering.
Get to that.
We'll get to that.
But before we do, I'd like to start off every show with the wisdom of others until Bob interrupts. And
I do that a lot.
Yeah. Well, we have a quote that you brought, David, from Winston Churchill. And the quote is, "It's better to be both right and consistent. But if you have to choose, you must choose to be right." Why is that important to you? Why do you like that quote?
I love this one, particularly now where we've got a lot going on in global politics, and people are always criticizing one person or another for didn't we hear him last year saying such and such thing, and he flip flopped again and all this kind of stuff. But in life, I feel like it's a learning process, and we have new data and new information and new insight coming our way each day, and the idea that we wouldn't respond to that in some way and adjust our thinking and hopefully grow and learn new things is sort of like absurd to me. So
yeah.
So I think it's always been one that stuck with me because I like to support the general idea of progress, and I think our story at Project 202 sort of ties in with that as well.
I like your paraphrase of it even better, which was, "I'd rather be right than consistent."
Yes.
So I like that. It's so succinct. But the thing that caught me whenever I read that is I was thinking how politicians cannot seem to be wrong anymore. If somebody changes their mind, it's like the worst thing possible.
Right.
They've had to be this perfect, all-knowing, all-seeing person their whole lives, and they can't evolve. And I'm thinking,
it would be so much more refreshing if they just jump on and say, hey, you know what? Based on this new insight that I learned last week, I've decided that this is it. And, obviously a year ago I thought something different, but here I am.
Well, and I'd like them to say, you know what? I got new information. You know what? Or if they're running for office, when they ask, what are you going to do about this and that? It's like, I don't know. Because I don't know everything that is going to be available to me when I get into that office. So
I'm probably a little contrary on it because for me, I feel like that's almost though, as much as I point at the politicians, I feel like it's a reflection of culture. I just find it refreshing anywhere I go where someone just says, hey, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I didn't realize, hey, it's like with a team member or something like that. Hey, I messed up. Now I know I learned. Okay, let's go.
But the other thing I like about it is that, like with an employee or a coworker or a client or whatever, I would much rather I would rather give forgiveness for them having taken action, even if it turns out to not be the perfect result, than for them to have sat there and done nothing.
Exactly.
It's like I want people to come with solutions, not with just problems. So let's give it a shot, right?
Exactly.
So anyway.
So real quick, just I wanted to back up and just talk. So tell us about the first business you ever started, because you've had a pretty significant success before even Project 202.
Yep. So the first company that my partner and I, a guy called Stephen Andrews, started back in 1999. Interestingly enough, our main office for that company was in this very building here.
No way.
Really?
Yeah. we were on the 9th floor. Back then, this building had the Grocery Works signage on it, and then shifted to Clear Channel and so forth. But anyway, we had the 9th floor in this building, and it was a business that was a full-service technology consulting business for helping large companies build software. So somewhere in the similar space, and you can see sort of how the evolution of our thinking is evidenced in Project 202. So, but yeah, we built that company up over about 9 years, and ultimately sold the business to EMC out of Boston in 2007.
So just out of curiosity, because I mean that's an interesting time to start. That's like the height of .com and all that. I mean, there had to be a couple of key learnings. I mean, I want to talk about Project 202, but a couple of key learnings that maybe you pulled forward.
Absolutely no. To actually begin a business in 1999 was quite daunting, actually, because everybody in the world had a fantastic opportunity to go work for some company with a myriad of stock options and a massive compensation package. So it's like, how on earth are we, a new company, going to start to build a team of people? Are they going to come and join us? And what on earth can we do to create an attraction and retention engine that would be compelling enough to make that happen? And so that was what we had to ponder for a fair number of months at around that time. And so it was like it was obvious, I think, that there was plenty of demand in the market, but how on earth were you going to address the supply side, the idea of having teams of people that could go out and help build large-scale software applications? And so one idea that crystallized during that time was the idea of creating unique equity structures around very specific disciplines. So we thought about the whole technology landscape in terms of what some people might describe as an enterprise architecture. And so it's kind of layers in the architecture. And so we had the application layer, the technical infrastructure layer at the bottom. We had the data architecture layer, and we had an information and sort of user layer, and then ultimately a business layer. And so what we decided to do is we would go create boutique companies oriented around each layer, and we would own a majority stake in each layer, but we would basically go out and recruit entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial leaders for each layer, thereby providing them the opportunity to begin their own business. And at the same time, we would still have the glue, because we had the overall umbrella business that would pull these elements together. So that's precisely what we did. We built two individual boutique companies for the architecture layer and the infrastructure layer. And then we bought a data architecture company, and then we ended up buying a user experience / information architecture company in 2005. We rolled all of those businesses up into one cohesive whole. The company was called Genient, and then, as I say, we documented how our methodology could be applied to creating more agile, real-time businesses, and that business was sold in the summer of 2007.
So how long was it after you sold that business before you started Project 202 or started your next business?
Yeah, so my business partner and I created a holding company in 2008, and then we opened our doors for this new business that became Project 202 in the summer of 2009.
Okay. Did you know, hey, that we want to do this again, or was this?
Yes,
I mean,
we had a pretty clear kind of thinking that this was an area that we would invest in. And I think one of the big philosophies that I guess underpin both the first business that we built and this one is the idea if we can help other people to leverage their skills and kind of shine a light on the qualities that they have, that's a very, very powerful system. And I call it sort of harnessing self-interest at scale. It's just such a fundamental human thing that if I can help you do the thing that you're self-interested in doing, but I can provide you the infrastructure to do it bigger and better, then by default, if I'm part of that, I'm going to benefit, which helps my self-interest component, but it's truly a win-win. And so cracking that code of how to leverage equity programs and true ownership that meant people actually have to build value. You don't get money for nothing,
right?
But you get a chance to really express your skills. The other thing that was very unique about that stage was I was never an expert at anything, so it was a bit awkward, honestly, because here I am starting these businesses, but like I can't do any of the things that we sell. So
sounds perfect to me.
So I was really truly like the agent and or promoter and connector for these super talented technologists. That's evolved. I was a strong marketer and a strong business person and understand the context of what's good for business and how technology could potentially enable success in businesses. But this was about really focusing on talented individuals and people that could build teams of people around them that recognize them as gifted in their field. And how do you hold those groups of people together and take then that element of their skill and show how, coupled with other areas of skill, we actually need to aggregate these skills into something more holistic to deliver a complete solution, which many of those people in their particular niche skill set didn't necessarily know how to fully contribute to the big picture. And I think that's a theme that also underpins kind of our understanding and learning over these sort of past 10 to 20 years.
Well, that's a mouthful. And we're going to have to take a break at the moment, and we'll be back in a few minutes to talk about this more. You're on listening to The Next Level on 1190 AM.
Stick around.
Hi, this is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty. If your office lease is going to be expiring in the next year or two, the one thing I would tell you definitely do not want to do is exercise a renewal option. Now, that may sound a little nuts. When you negotiate for that renewal option, why wouldn't you actually want to use it? Well, the reason is because while you want to have one as a reservation for your space so the landlord can't lease the space out from under you, that option may not actually work the way you want it to now. It may have made sense 5 years ago, but it doesn't today. The only thing that changes when you exercise a renewal option are the expiration date and the rent. But you may want to do other things like have another option to renew, have an option to terminate or expand. You may want to be able to expand now or have a new base year for your operating expenses. There's all kinds of things that need to be considered. So we recommend that you renegotiate, not renew. For more information, contact me, Bob Gibbons, at texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. Welcome back to The Next Level. We're here with our guest, David Lancashire of Project 202, and you can find them on the web at project202.com, PROJEKT 202.
We've still got to get to that story, but a couple of things right before the break you were talking about is this self-interest at scale and having these super talented, entrepreneurs that are building and then connecting something cohesively between all those. Two things that kind of stick to my mind, and just business application, even for my business, that I'd love to learn from you is just one, how did you develop, or were they self-developed? I mean, like, did you just find the talented people and did they develop? And then two, when you have that level of talent and they're all, of that mindset, how do you manage the egos to get everyone to work together?
Yeah. Great question. So I think I was fortunate to have found myself in a network of super talented architects. I arrived in Dallas back in 1992, and I was with an English software company that had asked me to move over for a short period of time to the States. Here I am, 25, going on 26 years later. And I ended up connecting with a friend of mine who happened to be English and in Dallas as well, and he was a really top-notch software architect, and he was building a consulting and training business in the software space, and that really was kind of a foreign language to me. I was more of a product marketing and distribution expert at that time, and so he asked me for some help, and so I really got in to help him grow his business, and through that fortuitous kind of moment in time, I developed a network of friendships and professional relationships with really top-notch tech talent. And so I think coming out of that era and that phase was we're like, well, we know we have this access to talent. So the question is, how does one really bring those teams of people together, and what would be compelling to them? So that was the beginning.
Okay.
So let's step back for a minute. I gave a really poor description of the company on the introduction. So why don't you give us a little more detail on exactly what the company does and what sort of makes it different?
Sure, absolutely. So, in its simplest form, the business Project 202 is all about designing and building software. And so we help large corporations, everyone from Mercedes-Benz to, we've been featured helping Southwest Airlines in a Fast Company article recently. Really big businesses solve tremendously complex software problems, and then all the way down to potentially new innovators entering a market wanting to build software, and they'll turn to Project 202 to help build that. But the key difference is that we don't think in the terms of, hey, we're just builders of software. We think about this as everything we're doing is about an experience for a real person. So if you think about a brand today of any large company, how many of the moments you interact with that company are really technology enabled? Like the majority of them. Even if you walk up to check in your luggage at the airport, you may go up to the desk and then, oh, guess what? There's a screen in front of them. Okay, so how modern is that interaction that individual that's helping you at the desk is having with that technology? All those factors are influencing the brand experience, and so we think about it from that lens of this is an experience that's being delivered. It's being delivered to all kinds of different people, and there has to be an approach that allows you to really gain the insight. So number one difference about Project 202 is the way we gain insight, and we can delve deeper into the qualitative research techniques that we use that are real people science of understanding people, observation in context of the work, and I'll touch on that. The other key difference about Project 202 is that we believe that there's been a breakdown in the way people organize teams in order to deliver this ultimate experience through the actual delivered software itself. So often designs get thrown over to development teams to go put into production and to finish the job, so to speak. And unfortunately, unless you bring these researchers, designers, and development teams together in a co-located or at a minimum virtually co-located scenario, it's impossible for the true understanding and vision of what should get designed and development to occur. So those are kind of some key differences and elements about what Project 202 is trying to do, but it's the fact that one of these experiences, one of these software moments or applications that might get built is aggregated for a large corporation into a series of those. So now we're talking about the entire customer experience, and then think inside the company, employees using the systems that, again, ultimately are going to help them serve the customer. And so people are beginning to talk about digital transformation and how they're going to really move their company to become a more modern organization. We call that experience-driven transformation rather than just digital transformation, because we believe it's about understanding the desired experience, potentially matching that experience with the brand promise that you have as a senior team at a large corporation. So even though here we are talking about a company that builds individual experiences in a specific application, now you're talking about a whole programmatic approach to transforming an entire corporation because technology enablement is impacting, let's say, 90% of all the interactions with that brand.
So can you give us a quick example of a project you guys have done that you're able to talk about where this has happened? And who, I got to believe there's a lot of different users, right? So you got the users, which are the employees, the users, which are the customers, the users, which are the investors, perhaps. So
yeah, we've been fortunate to help just pretty much all the major brands you can think of, and I'm feel super proud and honored that we've had that opportunity, and a lot has come from the bigger story behind this and all the people that have built up the credibility for us to win those opportunities. But yeah, we've been helping large luxury car manufacturers rethink how they would deliver the experience to a customer in the dealership, for example. And what's so interesting is, you could think about yourself and your own interactions going into a car dealership or how you'd like to buy a car. But the key point here is that there's so many different types of person, and each of those groupings of people want a different sort of interaction, and there are different things that are important to them. And so, as you start to delve into the key desires and themes, a lot of us buying a car, want to have simple, transparent financial information about whether, this price is the right price to be paying for this thing, and how simply can I get this deal done without, spending hours and hours. But the key about all of this is the ability to start identifying within the overall grouping of customers, subgroupings that we call experience-based personas. So experience-based personas are groupings of people that act and respond in similar ways that we can identify through our qualitative research of observing people in context. We have this thing we call the moment of least astonishment, where we're starting to see repeated patterns of behavior, where it's like, actually, this is pretty clear. We have 4 personas here, 4 experience-based personas. And now, once we get to that point, we can start to say, okay, if these are the 4 personas, what are the experience enhancements that we need to deliver across these different moments in their journey, their customer journey, their employee journey, and so on? So again, we get back to this super powerful situation where we can lay out clear programs of improvement and enhancement. And that's the breakthrough from my point of view. It's the idea that you can frame problems for top-notch design teams to solve. If you can make sure they're focused on the right things rather than just dreaming up ideas that may or may not be the right ones for this particular business situation, you're way ahead of the game. So much money is wasted globally on building and actually designing and building the wrong things. Even if you have nice user experiences that look nice and might appear to be well designed, but they're actually not correct for that particular scenario. So it's all about getting it right. And we're talking about, global businesses, 300 billion plus. We feel like the approaches that we're taking are beginning to take hold, this experience-driven approach. But it's probably only touching up to $1 billion of total spend in the world today versus, well over 300 billion. So there's still so much being built the old-fashioned way. Here's a set of requirements. Let's talk to this user representative who may or may not be an actual user of the system, and they're going to explain to you what we need to start with as a minimum viable product. Then we're going to use agile development techniques to iterate and hopefully gradually get closer and closer to the real need of the customer. We're here to say that there's profound improvements on that are available today for large corporations, and they don't need to say, well, how do I do that? They can come to Project 202 and say, okay, we want to harness these amazing qualitative insights so that we are beginning at the right place and that we are then moving and progressing at a faster clip. And that's, again, we're not trying to say we have this magic, fairy dust that we sprinkle on the project and it's amazing. No, we're saying these are just incremental improvements based on groups of people that have put in hours and hours and hours of hard work to learn how these methods can truly be integrated into the software development process. I see it as a combining of people science and software development.
Very interesting. All right, we'll be right back. We've got to take another break.
Stick around.
Hi, my name is Fern, and I've been an empowered team member at Alkali for over 5 years. I first learned about Alkali through an online job board and was intrigued to learn that Alkali was a Dave Ramsey endorsed local provider. But what captivated me was Alkali's mission statement, which is closely aligned with my own beliefs. So what's kept me at Alkali for over 5 years? First, Alkali's 5 core values match my own. Second, I've been empowered to use my unique abilities to impact our community, our clients, and Alkali. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an empowered Alkali team member, visit our website, alkaliservices.com. That's ALKALI services.com.
We're back with the next level. We're here with David Lancashire, CEO of Project 202, PROJKET 202.com.
No. PROJEKT.
Oh, I tried to do it by memory.
All right, David. So one of the things I find
Just for you,
interesting
Bob.
is you're talking about all this being the observed user experience. So that's different than just what I think the user experience ought to be.
Yeah.
So how do you actually accomplish that?
Yeah. So we're really talking here about the idea that observed reality, what people actually do, it can be very different than what they say they do. Not that anybody's necessarily trying to mislead or misrepresent or lie, just simply that we forget kind of what we do. A lot of things that we do are routine. We don't, that's not that important. But actually, it's everything about what you're doing that has to be captured to truly understand what's going on in the experience. So we call it contextual inquiry work. So we're out in the field doing field work, actually following around. Let's say it's for a major airline. It's people in the operations, flight operations, and we're out there, seeing every part of what's going on in the life of the operations crew. Because that's where you're seeing the workarounds and the limitations of the existing solution. So that's what we're talking about, is capturing all these moments, and literally it's kind of a little old school in the way the research in the field's done. A whole bunch of sticky notes, and you start to put them together so you can aggregate this data, and then you go into the affinity diagramming workshop is where you start to take all this data, where you're beginning to identify and recognize these patterns. Now, we are talking to these people because you're asking, I noticed you did X. Why did you do that again? I saw you put a sticky note over here and make a note of something. Why did you do that? And those types of things. So it's fantastic sort of to see these techniques from people science being really integrated fully into the design and development process.
Yeah, because I see it in a lot of companies. There's the sort of official procedures and processes and software, et cetera, and then there's the sort of unofficial. Just like you have official leaders and unofficial leaders, right? So what are people really doing? And sometimes they have all these workarounds to do the things that the official systems really aren't addressing or dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, this is not an attack on the software that was built over the last 20 or 30 years, because obviously when software began, it was like, hey, we have to automate this business process. It used to be paper-based or whatever, and a team goes ahead and automates it, and then they say, okay, team, I need you to use this software package now to get your job done. Now, it's just that over time, the experience that was delivered on that wasn't really about how enjoyable that might be for the person having to do their job. It was just, hey, we're automating this thing. We're cutting out a whole bunch of cost in the structure of our organization, and it's going to make our business model viable. So we got to keep doing these things. Great. Congratulations. Good job. Okay. Now we actually know that we need to start thinking about how that experience could be far better for the employee as well. So I have several examples of where we'd like to pick an employee experience for a large corporation and say, what if we were able to make their life better? How much impact could that have? Think about a sandwich store, for example. If you had a whole bunch of franchisee kind of sandwich stores, there's usually a person that has to look after 8 to 10 of those stores. Okay, that person's job might be, I got to get this batch process of data of all these sales figures so I can go talk to the store operator or owner about how they're performing. I've got all these campaigns we're supposed to be running in the store that, corporate saying we need to roll out, and I need to make sure I'm familiar with all that stuff. And now I've got to drive around to all these locations and have these meetings. Okay, what is the life of that person like? Now, if they're managing 8 stores, what if they could jump in their car, talk to Siri, have Siri tell them exactly what the sales numbers are, grab their iPad, click straight to the data, show quick campaign examples, take some photographs around the store and validate that that's how the displays were supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, can you imagine the efficiency gains around that? Now, that person's life is better, which is our purpose as a company, to improve the experiences that people are having all around the world, particularly as it relates to the technology interaction, okay? But now that person could potentially manage 10, 12 stores and do it with a happy heart, one hopes. So that is an amazing impact if you had 20,000 stores on the G&A expense of that corporation.
Sure.
So these are profound transformational things, but it could begin with, what's a key role in your company? How would you like to potentially transform the experience for that person? Now you're helping someone. You're delivering a better experience there. You can attract and retain those people more easily. This is great stuff, great news, and it's progress, and it's better for your business. Total win-win-win. So how do you do it? And that's where I'm saying there's companies today that have methods, and we've got to get this message across that there are trustworthy programs, not just genius design. Let me go hire some UX guru from somewhere and they're going to magically make this experience better. No, there's real techniques, and you got to go to experts, and that's kind of where we fit in.
Interesting.
So one thing that I was curious about is, you said I'm not knocking on where software started and everything else. Was there like an inflection point for you where you realized that, were you ever operating the old way? And was there an inflection point you said, like, hey, like where the light bulb went on and so we got to do this differently?
Yeah, no, I would say, well, so first of all, the old way was in and of itself trying to improve. So the whole idea of iterative incremental development and the idea of, strong risk-based project management, running those types of projects, that was the way our business at Genient ran. But it was very much a distant thing from the user, because you received these requirements documents, and then the idea was, well, we can't go too far wrong because we're going to build a minimum viable product. We're going to iterate from there, and we're going to show the user early and often with the idea that they can redirect. So that in and of itself was an advance, and is an advance, and Agile is integrated into our methodology today. Sure. But it missed the point that you're starting with technologists and architects and tech people who generally speaking, were not the groups that were most likely to have real empathy for the user or deeper understanding of that user. And they weren't necessarily saying that they should have that skill. They had maybe the ability to invent, and they know what the technology could do, and so forth. You got the customer or user on the other side who has no idea what the technology might be capable of doing. And so by default, you got this kind of divide. So we spent a decade building software the old way, successfully the old way, because we had happy clients, paid us, came back and asked us to do the same thing again. So that was kind of the way. And so, like I said, this is more about the ability now to incrementally move on from there and know that actually you don't have to sort of have this starting point that is lacking in insight. So now we call it our revealing reality phase. So it's this period where we're doing all this work in the field to understand in context what's going on. That reveals what the truth of these real needs, aspirations, unmet needs, emotional connection points even. Like these are things we were not talking about the old way.
Yeah.
And now suddenly I discovered, actually in my case through meeting the German founder of Project 202, the business in Austin that we merged into our business in 2011. So Peter Eckert is the guy who talked to me about some of these methods. And I was like, okay, this is just a jump forward. So we have to put this on a global stage because not enough people know that it's here. I'd been running a successful business for many years, and I was not aware that these advances were starting to come along. So that's why I jumped on it and said, okay, we got to package this up and take it global.
So do your customers typically know that they have a problem, or do you have to go in there and show them that they have a problem?
I think there's a fantastic amount of awareness today that experiences can be better. And we saw that in the wave of time since the iPhone launch in 2007, that people started to recognize that they were having good experiences in maybe their favorite app or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, why can't my life be like that when I go to work or whatever? So we that was this time where expectations became raised and were higher going into the office, and visionary people started to go, I know there's possibly a better way of doing this.
And was that because the iPhone worked so well, or was it because the technology was now in the palm of their hand, literally, and they had higher expectations?
Probably a combination.
Yes and yes.
Yeah, a combination of the two. I think there it was. Here I am able to use this application to do a few things simply, and I go to work and I can't even enter my timesheet simply, or I'm having to go through this tricky process for expense approvals and whatever. So these are all fundamental experiences that can get vastly improved in businesses today. And every step of the way, it's improving things for the global economy, and we're becoming more productive, and that's allowing standard of livings to increase. And so, it's an exciting time to be engaged in this particular area.
It is.
It's got to be a real challenge to deal with this across cultures globally. I mean, you're dealing with an airline, you mentioned. Well, now you're dealing with people from all over the world, dozens of languages, maybe hundreds. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, you going around looking at the user experience in all those different contexts?
In some cases, yes. So that we would have to, when we're doing our field work, you're obviously recruiting groups of people, and so we have expertise in how you're actually targeting those groups of people in the first place to be part of your studies. But yeah, no, for us, that's obviously a gradual expansion as we start to go global. We are going to be scaling up our teams in regions around the world. And so, it's kind of a step-by-step thing for us.
All right, we got to take one more break. We'll be right back in a few minutes.
My name's Garrett Adair.
And my name's Nick Hall, and we're the co-founders of Idify.
And now for ABC's The Bachelor.
Welcome back to The Next Level. We're here with David Lancashire of Project 202.
PROJEKT202.com.
Redemption is so sweet.
Redemption so sweet. And another thing, we just got to point out for our regular listeners, Bob was actually talking about an iPhone in a positive light there.
I know. What am I going to do?
I think the Earth.
It's still not as good as the Android, but it'll work. It'll do.
Just real quick on the Project 202 with a K.
Yes,
please.
So the original founder of Project 202 in Austin is a German guy.
Okay.
And when I first met him and he started describing some of these approaches for gaining the insights to really understand people and he has this wonderful German accent, and so here he was speaking with his German accent. And I grew up in England with all the Mercedes ads and bombarded. So what I was really hearing, and what I feel like Project 202 has come to represent, is the idea of German engineering applied to the creative field. So this idea that creative, often we're like, how do I control or contain the creative force and actually have stuff delivered in a program of effort? And I think there's a lot of fear, like, I don't want to hire these creative teams because what if they don't actually do anything, deliver what we want? And so that's kind of part of what the symbol of this K in the project with a K is, this German element to it. And so here we have German engineering applied to the creative field, which means, again, trustworthy, programmatic, delivered solutions for our clients.
Very process-oriented. What does the 202 signify?
202 was his story of a couple of his friends and teaming up to go out on the original journey.
Okay, interesting.
Is he still a part of the
Oh, yeah.
organization?
So Peter's our chief experience officer, and
Okay.
flying around the world helping everyone understand our methodology and
Yeah,
approaches.
I was looking at your videos on your website, and I saw there was some from you, some from Peter, and then a lot of other people within the company. I mean, and so I was thinking, all right, you got a British guy and a German guy running an American company in Dallas, doing global business.
That says
Pretty
something
incredible.
great about Dallas.
Yeah.
Dallas is pro-business and open and global and fantastic.
Great place to be. So curious, as you're recruiting these, let's talk about culture a little bit. You're talking about you've been talking about a fundamental mindset shift in how software gets developed. So if you're bringing in super talented, experienced people, are you indoctrinating them in that mindset? Are you recruiting that they already have that mindset? Because it seems like most people aren't thinking this way yet.
Yeah, we look for obviously top professionals in the field. I think it's very helpful that we have laid out a clear methodology, and in our book, Designing Software for People, there's actually a clear layout of the methodology. And I think what's nice is when we're recruiting people, they can see where they are contributing to this whole. And we know that their skills are very deep in one area, and then of course they can become leaders and start to really develop those areas further for us. So it becomes progress, but it also means that it's very trainable. So it becomes this really scalable component of our business, because we can bring in people that are eager to participate in this industry, and we can really train them up in the way we do this.
So you have offices in Dallas, Austin, and Seattle.
Yep.
Is that just because that's where clients took you? What's significant, or why is it so good to have those different offices versus just one?
We're at a very early stage of expanding Project 202. So we're in the middle of looking at acquisitions around the country to basically expand our distribution network. So we're looking at very actively at many cities around the U.S. So the significance is we started our original business here in Dallas. We merged with Project 202 in 2011, which was Austin-based, and then we had some clients that asked us to expand up into Seattle. So it's all part of the entrepreneurial phase that got us to sort of where we are today. Now we're part of a global organization, and we're expanding and starting to invest in cities around the country, and then hopefully well beyond there.
Where do you get started in regards to global is big, right? So is there areas of concentration or focus that you're looking to gain momentum in first, or?
We'd like to have a base of distribution points around the United States. So we're very interested in Chicago and San Francisco and New York and so forth. So
the major,
kind of like initial expansion points, and then like I said, we are having a lot of opportunity across the world now in Asia and Europe. So we're going to be having to look at how we're going to cater to those clients as well.
Now, with technology being what it is today, and communication being so easy and fluid from one time zone to the next, what's the real advantage about having an office in Chicago and San Francisco and New York, et cetera, Beijing, versus managing it all from Dallas?
It kind of comes back to just the human aspect of this, right? So if you're a business and you're based in Chicago and you want to interact and work with local teams of people, typically relationships are formed locally. So you certainly may want to work with the business development teams and account managers that are local. Yes, there's a degree to which some of the delivery teams can be virtually co-located. But again, we go back to this powerful component of having people together who research, design, and development, the full understanding in the business context, and we reduce error and we reduce lack of direction by making that happen. So yes, like I said, once you are leveraging technologies and video and Slack channels and various things, the ability to sort of say, well, I am co-located, that's where some of the change is occurring. But no, I don't think anything will ever replace the idea that we want to work with people that we know and trust, and there's that
Sure.
local connection. So that's when I talk about distribution, I talk about the idea of us, having reach into the local community in these various cities around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I always see that a relationship of two individuals that actually can see each other, touch each other, talk to each other face to face is always going to be better than an image on a screen.
Than any other, right? I mean,
Yeah.
any other
Yeah.
type. So just out of curiosity, I mean, you have this global mindset, global ambition that you're pursuing. What does that mean to your team? What does that mean for opportunity for them?
Yeah, I think it's exciting for our team, and potentially a little scary too, because we've got to scale up to much bigger opportunities. But yeah, this is a chance for the people that are free to be able to move around, to go to exciting new locations around the world, to potentially be the leaders that are putting together the teams for delivering. So yeah, very exciting times from that perspective. But at the same time, we're being very thoughtful right now in terms of doing that in a pretty structured way.
Sure.
So when you first started the business, where you were really kind of taking a different twist on developing software, how did you manage the risk of that? I got to imagine there was some serious startup cost of that.
Well, actually, from a risk management perspective, that's interesting, because I had always realized as I went through my life that I'd have to make a decision on where I could begin a business. And if you start thinking about building a software product as your new you have X $100,000 worth of upfront investment, probably followed by X million of follow-on investment. And so you've got to decide, am I willing to raise that capital? How am I going to fund that? And so forth. And then ultimately, bigger existing businesses, you got to decide, I'm going to buy this already existing business that's maybe doing consumer goods or whatever. And so what's my secret sauce for improving that business if I were to buy it, and how do I convince the capital to come in? So if you wind that all the way back to, well, what would be the simplest, easiest, lowest barrier to entry opportunity to begin? It's the idea of hiring one very senior person who has a unique skill set in an area. So for me, it was reverse engineering what is the lowest cost entry point that I could accomplish with my business partner. And that meant hiring one very senior person, because if I could get that person actively helping a client, and I could potentially deliver the marketing, sales, and my partner was able to provide all the infrastructure, finance, operations, we were in a position to sort of scale that, but our cost or our burn rate was effectively limited to the first hire plus the minimal infrastructure plus ourselves. That is a very different proposition. Still super risky, and after 6 months, we're like, oh my gosh. But what I'm saying is, I had to gradually learn where could the beginning be if I didn't want to raise too much capital. Obviously, if you change that lens and say, I'm willing to raise X amount of capital, then you can kind of enter through different doorways.
So now, what about the risk when going global? You're talking about opening up new offices. So in those, how do you manage the risk of each of those new offices? Are you going to be raising the money and creating new offices, or are you waiting until you have a customer in those cities before opening the office?
We're fortunate to be part of a big global business at this point, and so those investment decisions can potentially leverage locations that we're already in through our parent company, or we can justify it based on the success we're having, in the other areas of our Project 202 business. So it's a lot easier today to manage that risk than it was way back at the beginning.
So we don't have much time left, but we have a couple of quick lightning round questions for you. Favorite app?
Yes, interesting one. For me, I love Zoom. Zoom has become really interesting to me. I had an experience where I was on the plane. I wanted to tune into a meeting that was going on back at the office. I wasn't necessarily always able to participate by voice, but I was able to look at the screen, look at the presentation that was being made, look at the spreadsheet, and here I was thousands of miles above Dallas somewhere on my way to Florida.
I love that kind of thing. Well, David, thanks so much for being our guest today. We've really enjoyed having you here. For our guests, please go to project202.com with a K. And if you want to know more about the show, go to nextlevelshow.com and find us on podcast at The Next Level Show.
Help spread the word. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thanks.